such a time as this.
And and welcome. How is it that I am not? Oh, my thing is off. All right, I got it now. My mute button was on. Welcome to For Such a Time as This, the round table. It is a how can I say it? It is a very aggressive title. I wonder who came up with it. The Democrats plan to criminalize Christianity. Please let me know that we are coming through. Loud and clear, thumbs up in the live chat if you can, if you will, if you can. Let me know. Hey, while we're waiting, I want to share with you the website for such a time as this .today. For such a time as this .today. If Big Brother decides to take us off of any said platform, you will always be able to be connected to us, and we will continue to bring content, hopefully, that is biblically based and accurate. If you go to For Such a Time as This, sign up for the email list. We send out an email list once a week to those who are on the email list with the content. We get a lot of information, a lot of feedback from people saying they do not get our the notifications. So if you go to this website, sign up for on the email list, we will send you an email once a week with all the links so you can get all of the wonderful content. Again, for such a time as this .today, for such a time as this .today. Okay, thank you, Jack. Thank you, Chad and Jay, for a thumbs up. And here is the wonderful title: The Democrats Plan to Criminalize Christianity. Let me go around the horn, introduce you to the participants on our round table. Say hello, Mr. We'll start on this side. Go ahead, Mr. Eric.
Good evening. Hope everybody had a wonderful Wednesday.
And this is Lisa Joy.
And Abby checking in.
All right, here we go. The Democrats plan to criminalize Christianity. In his first 24 hours, President Biden has signed a wide-ranging executive order on LGBTQ equality. I think you're missing some letters here. But the president of the Human Rights Campaign, the country's largest LGBTQ advocacy group, called it, quote, the most substantive, wide-ranging executive order concerning sexual orientation and gender identity ever issued by a United States president, close quote. Robert Gagnon is an advocate for Christian values in the public square. Let us play a clip of his assessment of the Equality Act. Now, this is back in April, before the Republicans lost the White House, before the Republicans lost the Senate. This is his take on the Equality Acts. Here you go.
Now, just with regard to the so-called Equality Act, which the Democrats made first priority business when they gained control of the House, and for which there is already 46 co-sponsors, in addition to the sponsor, that makes 47 in the Senate. That's how close it already is in the Senate, okay? And so we need every bulwark to prevent that from getting passed. Why? What's so problematic about the Equality Act, which I think is better worded as Get the Homophobic and Transphobic Bigot Act? That's you. Right off the get-go with regard to that bill is it says you cannot use the Religious Freedom Restoration Act to get out of this. Okay? The Religious Freedom Restoration Act is basically gutted. And this puts in civil rights categories sexual orientation and gender identity. You know what gender identity is, right? That's the euphemism for transgenderism. Here's some of the things that would happen as
And we are going to talk about here are some of the things that will happen. Who would like to go first? Oh, good.
When I was doing some research on this. This is Abby, and I first of all let me say that I thought that this would be an important topic to talk about, because I don't really think that very many Christians know about the Equality Act, and fewer understand exactly how it will change everything for Christians in this country. But one of the things I did not know, and it was, I don't know why I should be surprised. I have used that word so many times in the last 6 months. It's getting really old. But it actually, let's just start with abortion, because that kind of, you would think that kind of falls out of the purview of, basically this is an LGBT quote-unquote rights act, but they couldn't leave abortion behind. So the Equality Act redefines the word sex to include, get this, now sex, the word sex in the law now mean, if this gets passed, will now mean also pregnancy, childbirth, or any related condition. So it declares that pregnancy, childbirth, or a related medical condition shall not receive less favorable treatment than other physical conditions. Now get this next part. Therefore, it redefines pregnancy as a mere medical condition, which means that healthcare workers will not have the right to refuse to treat pregnancy. And that's a euphemism for abortion. In other words, Christian hospitals, Christian healthcare workers, even just people with a conscience, will not be able to, if this passes as it is right now, will not be able to say no to participating in abortions. If that is not insidiously sinister and evil, I don't know what is.
We do have someone saying, but Abby, isn't religious freedom protected by the Constitution? Jay, in this bill, it specifically says it's going to gut the Religious Freedom Act of 1993. And oh, by the way, what is the Constitution to a liberal? I don't think it's anything. They can care. I don't even think they know the Constitution is the law of the land.
You know, I've been watching some of the legal things, and there's a YouTuber in Quebec, and he was talking, and he has even an American lawyer that they get on, and they talk about all these things. And one of the things that, and I can't remember the lawyer's name in the state, said, you keep trying to go to the court, even if you think it's going to be thrown out, because the chances of you getting it listened to open the door for other things. So in light of what we've already seen in the court, when you think of Jay Sekulow and other people that have actually taken the problems that nurses and doctors have had when they have been faced with forced participation in abortion, it goes against their religious, they're going to have a really hard time. Even if you forget about the Constitution, you have legal courts have turned this over again and again across. So I have a hard time seeing, I mean, look at where we are now. We have a president that with all reality does not have even the majority of the states behind him. And I know what you're going to say, forcing it through, but I just don't see. They can pass these things and they can act as if that, but they're going to have a huge backlash. And I'm not just talking about people like us that are saying, yeah, we're standing up and we're not going according to this. It defies all common sense. It defies even communist countries that have oppressed their people.
Common sense is gone.
I know. I understand that. But not for the majority of the population, because when you think about the reason that they wanted to even change the Electoral College is because that gives representation to people that are not in huge cities.
So let me just go down the list here of what has already taken place. One, the United States President has added gender-neutral pronoun options to the White House website. Two, is announced and will reverse Trump's ban on open service for transgender military members. That means when we go out to fight for war, you will have a man with a beard, with long blonde hair, with lipstick and high heels, marching with the Marines as they go out to war.
Okay, but we just saw the military turn their back on the motorcade when Joe Biden, that was on film, and I go, so my point is, you can say all these things, they haven't been,
That's what happened.
I know, that's happened, that's what you see, but is it really, the reality of that is not been processed. My point, you've seen him signing things, he's not holding them up and seeing a signature like Donald Trump did. You know, so I go, I haven't seen that yet, and I go, fear. Okay, I'm going to go to what I was thinking about even today about this. The Bible tells us over and over and over again, do not fear, do not fear, do not fear. And this whole thing, whether it be COVID, whether it be, you know, all the stuff that's going on, everyone is reacting in fear, and fear controls us.
I'm not reacting in fear. I'm just saying what happened.
But
Okay.
that's what
Okay. Go ahead.
you're seeing that. That's what they're saying, but it's
That's what happened. I'm not saying that's what they're saying. Wait, are you saying that Biden didn't reverse Trump's ban on service transgender members?
has it been implemented?
Do you think it won't be? Wait, under Obama it was. Under Obama it was.
Under Obama it was.
So
I'm not seeing that. What I'm saying is when you see motor cars go past and the military turn their back on them, I want to see. I'm not seeing. You could say you're going to do all these things, and it's almost like fear. I'm showing your true colors, but when is it implemented? Is it really being processed as an executive order that's actually being followed through? That's what I'm saying.
What I'm saying is, do you doubt that Biden will do what Obama did?
I'm not doubting that.
Yeah, he's going to do that.
I'm doubting
Yeah.
it's being followed through.
Okay. Okay. So he did announce the ban, reversing Trump's ban on services. He nominated a Pennsylvania physician who will become the nation's first Senate-confirmed openly transgender government official. That was a man dressed as a woman, who is now, I think, the number 2. He's high up in the Human Health Services. He's done that. He made several appointments of openly LGBTQ people, including State Department spokesman Ned Price, Katrina Jean Pierre as the White House principal's deputy press secretary, and Phil Tobar is the White House deputy communications director. He's done this to open members of the LGBTQ people. So they're touting this. The LGBT community is saying, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Joe. He look at what he's doing. And before the election, Biden promised to pass the Equality Act in the first 100 days. Right? Last week, an administrative official said it might not happen that quickly, but it is still a priority.
I think I heard this to a certain extent, but I want to just officially ask this question. Do we believe that the general populace of the United States of America clearly understands what the Equality Act really is?
Okay. Can I say something? Well, we are living in the day when you have to pass it to find out what's in it.
Oh, Lord, here we go.
So, I don't think it really matters.
Nancy's here somewhere. All right. No, because, I mean, it's dressed up. Now, I shouldn't have used that term, but I did. The bill is dressed up. They used a popular description, i.e. the Equality Act, but all of this garbage is in it. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be fully aware of what's in it until it passes. And then when it passes, if it passes, there will be howling and screams and shouts. And some of this, in fact, might be unconstitutional. It's probably going to have to go to court, but
Let me tell you what else is unconstitutional. Stealing an election in broad daylight. That's unconstitutional. But I ain't gonna let it go. I know what I saw. That's unconstitutional. But that didn't stop. Them from doing it.
Brother Pastor, you don't want to go down that road. I'm just saying. Not right now.
No.
I'm just.
So,
that's one thing, but I wasn't going there.
So here's my thing. I hear what you guys are saying about constitutional, and I hear Jay talking about Freedom of Protection Act and the Constitution. I don't think they care about the Constitution. Has not restrained these people since 1973, since they passed Roe versus Wade and made something up out of thin air to put forward abortion.
But they've gone to a whole nother 50 levels. They're going to redefine a word and try to stuff their garbage into it, i.e., okay, so we're going to say sex now includes pregnancy, and inside of pregnancy, we're just going to slip abortion in there, all under the guise of sex and pregnancy. That's
You know, I was listening to a program on YouTube with a conservative that was interviewing a comedian, and they were talking about how we've changed the meanings of names. And it's, you know, from all of us have been in school long enough to remember when there were certain words you could use that weren't bad, and now they're used for different reasons. And so this is my thought. We have gotten to a time where things have gone so quickly south that people are waking up to some of this, and to the point, to your point about the election, that we had people, Democrats, liberals, all these other people that did not vote along the party lines that were expected of them, which is why things went the way they did. And I'm not going to go into the machines and all that, but there's, and we've gotten to the point where we've got so much corruption that our courts are not ruling in they're not going according to the Constitution. They're not. And I think that people are waking up to that, though.
Okay, well, just to get us a little bit back to the Equality Act here, because this is going to be kind of, I think, more of an informational night than like a lot of times we go back and forth. But let me just explain some of the other things that are in this. There will be nationwide required LGBTQ indoctrination in schools. Children will regularly learn and relearn that anyone who is not a cheerleader for all things gay and transgender is a hateful, ignorant, and indecent bigot who has no place in society. Okay, so I'm reading the words, for the most part, of Rob Gagnon. He's done an awful lot of research he himself has been persecuted. He's a smart guy. He knows his Bible, and he knows the law too. We already said it. Okay. State social services. This is already happening. Will take your children away from you if you oppose your child's right to transition to the other sex, the opposite sex. Let's see. There will be obviously affirmative action, because that will always follows this kind of thing up, because corporations and people don't want to get in trouble, so they go out of their way to hire. So it'll be affirmative action for people who identify as transgender and gay throughout industry, corporate world, and academia. This will result in national mandatory speech laws. We already saw this in New York, where if you quote-unquote misgender someone, which means calling them by their actual biological sex, you could be fined $250,000.
We actually have a video on that. Let us show you Rob Gagnon explaining what is going on in New York.
It will result in national mandatory speech laws. In New York, we already have such laws with regard to transgenderism that will fine a person who, quote, misgenders a transgender person with up to $250,000 in fines. It will punish all persons who own a small business with massive fines and threat of imprisonment who do not want to be forced to use their talents to promote actively and directly homosexual intercourse and transgenderism. It will give the federal government the power to withhold money from any state that does not rigorously promote that agenda. It will lead to the removal of federal funding and ultimately accreditation from every religious school and college that does not promote sexual orientation and gender identity differences. And you know what that happens if a religious school, a religious college or university loses ultimately not only the research funds for science stuff or federal funding for student loans, but also ultimately loses accreditation. What do you think is going to happen to that school? It goes belly up. In other words, this bill would effectively destroy Christian education in the United States.
I want to get to a few comments on the chat list right there. Jack says, COVID taught us that the Constitution doesn't matter to the leftist Nazis. Yes, if they come up with a good enough excuse that enough people will swallow, they will take that Constitution and burn it and do whatever the heck they want if they can get people scared enough. Yes, that is what happened. Okay, Jim says this, folks, don't be surprised as though some fiery trial has overtaken you. Yes, the scripture said such things are coming. No, people have no idea what is. Jay reminded you all that the media paints Uncle Joe as a man of faith. You didn't know that? He's one of the most faith presidents ever, remember? That's what they told you. And J316 Ministries, hell will literally be unleashed once this is passed. When SCOTUS is packed, the Constitution won't matter. You know, J316, I'm not sure the Constitution matters even now. And Jay warned me that they're going to take my page down if I keep talking about some election. I guess you're right, Jay. We need to. I have problems with that, but I know you're trying to help me out. But doggone, it's like fire shut up in my bones if I keep quiet. But anyway, this will end Christianity, in essence. Abby, you wanted to go on some more, say more?
I think we hit most of the highlights. Along the lines of forcing doctors to participate in abortion in hospitals, it also forces them to perform sex change operations and treat all trans patients not as their real biological sex, but as the sex that they pretend to be. This is dangerous, medically speaking, but it doesn't matter, and we've seen that over the last 10 months. it doesn't matter how many people die because you discourage like effective treatments of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, etc. They really don't care. This has been demonstrated in any number of ways. And let's see, there's much more, but of course, if there's anything in your background, and we see it now with people getting quote-unquote canceled for things that they said 15, 20 years ago, if there is anything in your background that even hints that you were have a biblical view on homosexuality, and they find it, no Christian will ever be appointed to a political position, to to become a judge. If you can find a job in the corporate world, you will be lucky. You better hope that they don't find it, right? Because this becomes basically, it puts all this stuff on the, like he said, like Rob Gagnon said, it turns Christians into the equivalent of members of the Ku Klux Klan. So nobody is going to care what happens to the hateful bigots.
One of the comments here on the chat is that the Constitution hasn't been a valid legal defense at any point in my lifetime. The First Amendment, you only have a right to assemble if you're rioting and looting, not if you're worshiping. So, yeah, for the most part, when the governors were challenged through COVID, the governors could care less. The governors could care less. Go ahead.
But there were the Supreme Court, and they were backing up the churches because people pushed back, and that's the problem. It's like when you have these things go forward and you look at all this stuff, we need to start taking our kids out of public schools and start, if our tax money is going that way, all of us need to stand up. And I go even to the point with the masks. Even though it is proven that they do not stop this, no one is standing up. There's more of us than them, seriously, but and fear stops people. We don't want to make it look like we've been bullied. So I guess you decide at that point.
Let me just say this, what was it, 4 years ago, 2016? No. It was 2018. In the schools, this was sort of ground zero for the whole boys and girls locker room thing in our local school district. And there was they were having a school board meeting where the school members were going to decide whether or not to allow the boys are already in the girls locker room and vice versa, but they had to be behind some sort of a barrier so nobody could see them. So at this school board meeting, they were deciding whether or not to get rid of the barrier. So I went to the local public high school during girls volleyball. There were girls volleyball games going on. So these are female athletes. We're talking about parents sitting there. They're parents of female athletes. All I was trying to do was let people know that this meeting was going to happen, and if they thought that boys don't belong on girls' sports teams, that it would be good for them to show up. You cannot imagine the number of hands that were held up in my face of parents of these female athletes who didn't want to know, wouldn't even. It was astonishing, and this is this affects their daughters directly. So I don't have. I think that we've gotten to the point where, it doesn't really matter that the majority knows that this is evil and nuts and crazy. They're not going to do anything, and all the institutions are controlled by the lunatics, by the moral lunatics, let's say that. So,
and let me say this when it comes to the courts. I don't have much faith in the courts because the big one which they turned over was in New York. And then they did another one, I think is either Nevada or New Mexico. Is Nevada?
Casinos.
Casino. Here's the way they ruled. They said you can't discriminate against the church more so than you do other businesses. Okay, so since you let Costco and Walmart open, you can't discriminate against the church. I'm sorry, that's not right. Costco and Walmart, they're not in the Constitution. The church is. So you are supposed to, how can I say, the church and Costco is not equal to the Constitution. So the way they ruled is if you shut down Walmart, then you can shut down the church. I'm sorry, that's a dumb ruling. Walmart is not in the Constitution. The church is. So we've gotten some victories with the courts, but I don't trust the courts. I don't trust. This is the same court who saw the video in Georgia and still didn't want to take up the daggone elections. I'm not supposed to say that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ad.
I was just going to say, too, it's the same court that in Nevada said the casinos could stay open, but the churches had to be closed. So I take that back. Amy Coney Barrett, I don't believe, was on the court at that point. No. But that's how the court before her ruled.
So here's a question to the panel. We'll take a few more minutes, and then maybe we'll end about what does the Christian life look like. Okay, we'll preview next week. Just 2 minutes. We'll cut off at 2 minutes. But here's the thing. So here's one question. Jay asked, why such a strong push for LGBTQ rights? Why such a strong push for the rights? I'll tell you, Jay, because you asked the question, who's pulling the strings? I think the devil is. If the devil's pulling the strings, then you have your answer. The devil knows you cannot worship God and be a loyal member and citizen of Sodom and Gomorrah. You can't do it. You can't have it both ways. You can play little games with taxes. You can play little games with business and whatnot. You can't play with LGBTQ. It is Sodom and Gomorrah burning. Go ahead, Abby.
I was just going to say, in a worldly sense, too, the LGBT quote-unquote community is a community with a lot of money and a lot of time on their hands and a lot of anger. And they have been active for a very long time. And so what I'm saying is it's a real resource for the Democrat Party.
I had spent some time in high school competition in speech. And for the last, honestly, 20 years, I've heard young people, high school students, talk about, and more often than not, they were talking about their personal struggles as a transgender. Okay, this is where I confess ignorance. I did not realize, and my wife is aware of this, I did not realize that transgenderism had to do, well, let me tell you what I thought it was. What I thought it was young people who had either gone through a physical change or was about to go through a physical change. It wasn't until I heard Mr. Shapiro, this was 2 years ago, talk about the ridiculousness of someone who was insisting that they were female and they still had male plumbing.
Most of them.
I understand that now, but at the time, you should have seen my face when I said, wait a minute. Are you trying to tell me these are dudes that said that they are dudes and they said that they are going to be women?
Yeah. No, Eric, I didn't start walking with the Lord until I was 20. So if they had this around, I would have been a transgender when I was 17, 18. In my junior, senior year, all the dudes in my class say, yep, I'm a woman. Can I go in the showers now? That's how stupid it is.
Why I thought that parents would be staunchly against. So my lack of understanding on this subject as it applies to the general public is the only reason I can come up with is evil. That's the only right.
Demonic. Let me get some of the comments on the live chat here. Don't get me started on the Second Amendment. Yeah, the Second Amendment, that's next, to be honest with you. Jack says this, question for the panel, what will red states like Texas do if this passes? Jack, let me tell you this, Jack. I had a picture of a dude choking out a girl in the state championship wrestling. He was choking her out with one hand. You don't want to know what state that was from, Jack? Texas. That was in Texas. They were letting a boy choke out a girl in a championship wrestling in Texas. So, again, Texas, Texas is still funny in that the big cities are run by Democrats. Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin, what's the other one? I believe that's it. They're Democrats. They're staunch Democrats. Texas is not as red as it used to be. And I'm not sure Texas. I'm not sure.
There's also reverse
migration. There's also reverse migration. People from the north are going south. So you got a bunch of blue people moving south, and they're making red states purple.
And I think we said that one of the provisions of the Equality Act as it stands now is that the federal government will be able to withhold money to any state that doesn't cooperate and promote this. So
that's a wonderful way to start. I'm sorry. That's a wonderful way to start a civil war. One gentleman on live chat going down it brought up a good point. He says you got to have money. You got to have money to get to the Supreme Court. Right? It costs for lawyers to do that. And by the time, he's right, by the time you get to the Supreme Court, the damage is already done. They've many times they've been practicing for 78 years. How long does it take to get stuff up to the Supreme Court? You know, and damage is done by the time you get to the Supreme Court. Is absolutely right. Well, it's not a dumb ruling. It's an unconstitutional ruling. I'm not sure exactly what we talk about with that. Case law, subversion of the church's constitution. Texas is being invaded from all sides. Yes, from the west, from California, and from the south, Mexico. Texas is changing, big time. Big Texas moving to Texas and Florida in masses, and Wall Street is moving to Florida. We are losing our traditional red strongholds. Blah, blah, blah. Hey, look, next week we're going to have this topic. We'll say it now. We'll just take maybe 15 seconds from people, maybe a little longer. What does it look like for a Christian to resist? If we're going to resist these types of things, and there's going to be more things, what does it look like for Christians to resist? Should we be silent? Should we talk? Should we talk to the point where we lose our jobs? What say ye?
You know, I think for myself, we have got to have been resisting and being Christians in that sense of the word up until this point. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult. And I remember a friend of mine, she was listening to a YouTube, someone talking about prophecy, and they were talking about when this persecution comes, the casual Christians will become casualties. And I thought, yeah, that's one of the things that actually made her think about going to church again and doing the things that she's doing, because she said, I'm not prepared for this. And I thought, you know what, you look back in your life and you look at times, did I stand up for what I believed when it was with the friends that I'm with, when it was with church people that I'm with? You know, if you're not doing those things in the little ways, how in the world are you going to stand up when they're going to have a firing squad or, things like that? You're not. You're definitely not.
And if churches weren't standing up when the LGBTQ mafia was on a rampage in 2014 and 2015, when Obama was using Title IX to get boys in the girls' locker room. If your church wasn't standing up then, guess what? It ain't going to be standing up now. And if Christians weren't bold when we had relatively, if you weren't a bold Christian when we had freedoms, well, heck, when the freedoms are taken away, what makes you think all of a sudden you're going to become a Hulk Christian? You're not. Most Christians aren't standing up now. But the question is going to be this. What does it look like? Could you blame a Christian for not going on the internet or on social media and raising your hand and saying, I'm a Christian, here's what I believe, asking a man, asking a woman to in most cases, lose their jobs? I heard on the Rush Limbaugh, the guy was subbing for Rush Limbaugh. He told of a story, this one person, for having a Parler in MeWe account, not a post, but just having a Parler in MeWe account, was fired from their job. Not because they not any post, just having a Parler in MeWe account was fired from their jobs. Here's where we're going. Here's where we are as a Christian. Honestly, how does that look? What are we supposed to do in these coming months? Question, comments, last words? Go ahead.
I think that if you trust God, it's going to show. I mean, seriously, I was thinking even about, taking this, the vaccine, wearing a mask. And I hear people say, but I need my job. And I think, if you're going to, I think for me, the whole mask thing has been kind of a help get used to not having money to buy and sell, because this is coming. If I have to wear a mask, I don't wear the mask, so I go, this is ridiculous. I can't live this lie. So this is practice for me, because there is coming a time when I might really not be able to do some of the things that I think I have the freedom to do now. So.
And the comment is absolutely right. Answering, I guess, my question, what will it look like? It will look like the early church. There will be an explosion of truth, but mostly underground. Those that are found to be persecuted, those that are found will be persecuted by the media and stoned by the mob. It is coming. It is coming. And yes, J316, it will separate the sheep from the goats. That has already started, I believe. And organizations that meet on Sunday that are handling the COVID and the critical race theory issues very poorly. They are revealing themselves to be just organizations that meet on Sunday morning, not churches. Thank you for listening this evening. Let me put it up there again. Go to our website for such a time as this .today. Join our email list. I should have at least 100 new emails. Well, some of you already signed up, but we've had over 100 people look in and listen tonight. Please go to for such a time as this .today, for such a time as this .today, and look at our and sign up for our email so that you can stay connected constantly. I find myself ending a lot of these with the simple term, Maranatha, Lord, come quickly. Thank you, and God bless.
For such a time as this,